And we're live. Here we go. Good morning. Good morning and welcome. I thought I would start with a quick segment of an interview I did. If you haven't already seen it, I released about 6 one-on-one interviews over the weekend. So there's a bunch that are up. There's a couple that aren't yet up. And this is a segment from one of them. This is Ryan Quinlan. And he's talking a little bit about the changing and how people buy vehicles. So I thought it was pertinent seeing we're talking about the pressure cooker today. Here we go. Just always do that. Here we go. Come on. There we go. Why is it not playing right there? Do like random stuff like that, and I know there was some talk back a couple of years ago, if I remember, and we are doing a show on Monday about sort of the evolution of car ownership, I guess you could say. There's also been talk about fractional ownership and different things recently out there in the market space. So what does that mean to a customer who says, "Hey, I want the ownership. I want the use of a car, but maybe not the ownership of it, or I want to change the way I own it based on strictly affordability." Like, what does that mean for that?
Yeah, so with FlexCar, what it is, like I mentioned, we're the world's first month-to-month car lease, and what it means to you as a customer, and I think that's what your question is about, is what do you experience with the car? So when you're going to get a car, I want to be able to drive the car. I want to be able to use it for commuting. I want to drive to Maine or whatever with it. But I need the transportation, but I also want the newest features. I want to love that car that I'm in, feel happy when I'm driving it. And the traditional ownership for the last 100 years locks you into a car. As the car's depreciating, you're losing the value that you put into it. Then on top of it, you're having to pay for maintenance, you're having to pay for insurance, there's the roadside assistance if anything goes wrong. We cover all of that. So we allow you to get into whatever car you want, stay in that car until you are ready for another one. So you might want a Jeep in the summer, and then in the winter, you might want to switch to an F-150. That's fine for us. We love that. You come in for 6 months into one car, switch into another one for 3 months, that's totally fine. Switch back into a sedan, a new Mercedes for the summer next time. If you want to try out that EV for 3 to 6 months or for a year, that's great with us too. And then if you decide, I really love this specific car, I'm going to stay in this for the next 2 years, that's great for us. So FlexCar is about meeting you where you want to own a car. So I want my experience to be flexible. I don't want to deal with the problems. I only want to have the car I want, and I don't want to be locked in for a long time. We'll meet the customers where they are.
So that's a company based out of, I believe they're out of the California market, top of my head. The company's called FlexCar, and they're a new company. So they're trying that fractional ownership or sort of what I'd call flexible lease idea. But anyway, here we go.
Life is about connection, having a support system to lean on, and roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
One of the really nice things about Larry, one of the reasons that we brought him to our dealership, is he's so very much aligned with our core values. So with our brand, which is thoughtful and professional service. And because that alignment really worked out well, because he was so committed to the success of others, we really knew that he was the right person to spend time with our sales team, with our managers and each sales consultant. And we're just really thrilled to have a partnership with him And so we thank him.
How do you adventure? Is it fast? Is it free? Is it clear? Is it rugged? Is it remote? For your next adventure, trust MotoClose for buying, selling, trading, and protecting all of your motorized assets. Powered by Disclose Dealership Management Dashboard, your all-in-one DMS, CRM, menu, lead gen, inventory, staff, client, and deal management solution. Disclose DMD, like a DMS, only better. Mention promo code AutoHub2025 to get special pricing, including waive setup costs, no contract, and your first month's free.
Car dealers often underestimate the power of social media. Are you wondering why my face is plastered in your newsfeed? Are you a GM, dealer principal, or a manager at a car dealership wondering why you see me all the time on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and all over social media? Well, that didn't happen by chance. I target car dealers that are in-market shoppers for social media services, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for you so that you target in-market shoppers for your brand of customers that purchase your vehicles. During my Viato days, helping car dealers appraise and price cars, everyone was asking me, what do I do on social media? What do I do with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? And this was back in 2016. So here we are 10 years later. I started a company, became an entrepreneur, and now I help car dealers. They either outsource their social media needs to us, or we have a training and education center where we can teach all of your employees how to do social media in-house. 90% of consumers actually follow a business on Instagram. The average adult sits on TikTok for 2 hours a day in the rabbit hole. To learn more information about it or to get a demo from one of my sales associates, click the link below. We would absolutely love to help you.
And good morning. So I thought I would start, since we have Mr. Greg Smith on, first time he's been on the show. So I thought I would start with Greg. So maybe you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do it. And also, what do you think the OEM can do to help dealers more in 2025? If you don't know Greg, he's had experience on both sides of the coin. So maybe he can share some thoughts there. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, happy to be here. This is my first time on. So currently I'm Vice President of Operations for Levens Automotive Group. We're located in southwestern Ontario, and we've got 7 rooftops, 5 different brands: Volkswagen, Mazda, Chrysler, Volvo, and Subaru. My role specifically is managing the day-to-day operations on variable and fixed, with the 7 rooftop GMs reporting into me. So really just focusing on driving the business, revenue generation, customer service, accountability, action plans, all that fun stuff. So, and as Ian, you mentioned, I've been on both sides. So I was with the OEM for 8 years with BMW Group Canada, located up there in Richmond Hill, and then made the leap over to the retail side back in 2018. So I've seen both sides, and I think it's a big question. There's a lot that can be done to have the retail network and the OEMs working better as partners. And I think that would probably be my first comment, would be partnership over policy, and seeing the retail group as partners. And I think, it's not that that OEMs don't want to do that. They definitely want to do that. That is something they talk about all the time, is strengthening the relationships. But it's just a matter of, we're on the retail side and we're in the weeds doing this every single day with our customers, selling cars, servicing vehicles, and they're not. And I think my eyes were opened, because my background's a little unique. I started selling cars in a retail network in university, and then I went to the OEM, and then I went back to the retail network. So when I was at the OEM, a lot of people would ask my opinion on how things go in a dealership, or if I was in a big room of executives and I was fairly junior, they'd turn to me and say, is this realistic? Is this something that makes sense in the retail world? So I think that's the biggest thing, is looking at them as a partner. And I think they do that, but it really comes down to executing on it. That's the big piece there, is making sure that you're executing on that partnership. And other things like streamlining communication, simplifying programs, those are all, things that need to be happening as well. But I think if the core vision and goal is to be acting as partners, that'll go a long way.
Fantastic. So let's jump to Brandy. I know she's not an OEM and does work with dealers, but what's your opinion on, say, that relationship between the OEM and dealers, so what we're calling the pressure cooker for the show today, and sort of how they could do it better or how they could do it differently and help more?
Yeah, no, and I couldn't agree more with Greg. Mutual execution of a mutual partnership is absolutely everything. I think often, and this is what I've learned even from these conversations, is that everybody assumes that the staff knows, everybody assumes that they understand the programs, everybody assumes that they've taken time to explore every possible option for the client, and they simply have not. Staff has not. Just to even give an example, a friend of mine, a mutual colleague in the industry, was shopping for a car. She actually had to take over the desk and desk the deal to show the sales manager how he could utilize his non-subvent rebate against a short-term lease and give us a $580 payment on a QX60. So here it is, we make all these assumptions that everybody knows what they should be doing, and yet there's no, like Greg said, no real action plan to execute it. I also agree that there isn't enough retail bodies in the OEM world for them to make it make sense. And I really think that is just so underutilized on every value point that they could even think of. That's kind of our claim, like for our company, is that we do intend to have, especially the executive team, is all people that have actually sat in a dealership. I guarantee exactly what Greg said. Not only are people turning to him in the executive meetings at OEM, but the first thing a dealer's going to ask you is, have you ever been on my side? Because if you don't, I don't respect you, sadly.
It's interesting you say that. I did a stint for Nissan and Findi Canada, and I used to have a dealer in the Vancouver market. I managed all of Western Canada, but the dealer in the Vancouver market, they'd send these quarterly incentives, and he had a CPA that worked for me. He says, my CPA doesn't understand this program. I said, well, so did you want the Coles Notes version of what you had to do to meet these benchmarks? He said, yeah. I said, coincidentally, I did that for you because I knew you probably weren't going to read it. So I thought that was really funny. Troy, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the first thing I'll say is my experience in working with all of our customers who, spread across every OEM is like Greg said, if the dealership and the OEM approach this as a partnership, it's 10 times more successful. And you see that in some of these generational dealers that have been with General Motors, for example, for 3 generations or what have you. But then you'll go to another mixed dealer group where they'll say, oh my God, we really love working with the German OEMs. They really want our business, but the Korean OEMs make things 10 times harder than it needs to be. And so, I think there's a lot of economic pressures depending on the market, depending on the models. But honestly, just again, Greg hit the nail on the head. They want to be partners. We all want to be partners as vendors going into dealerships, vendors speaking with OEM people. Everything goes so much better if we're all just rowing in the same direction, right? And I think that there's been some really good and strong OEM relationship, sort of OEM versus the dealer body relationships. And maybe sometimes it's the people in the field. I don't know. But those relationships that may have gotten sour, or for example, a dealer their hand was forced to go and refinish their entire store at a cost of several $1 million to one end, and especially if you were a Nissan Ian, you know this,
Yeah.
that all the NCAR, iCar stuff, people were investing in the big Halo part of the store, and putting the vehicles down there, putting in all those iPad stations or the tablet stations. Every single store I go into, those tablet stations are dark. And a dealer remembers that every time they walk by this tablet graveyard, that this is money that my OEM rep told me if I didn't spend it, I was going to lose incentive or lose allocations. And I think, even just in automotive news this morning, there was a Hyundai ad talking about the Hyundai partnership with refinishing stores and the new image started in 2019. Right out of the gate, the second paragraph in that ad is, the optional program that started in 2019 has brought increased sales to our customers. They're selling their dealer bond on why they should, not putting a gun to their head and saying, do it now or you're going to get, lose incentive. And you can imagine the outcomes on either end of that is going to be very different depending on the approach, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always, when I was working in the Alberta market, I always had some dealers complaining about, hey, we are favoring this dealer group, we're favoring that dealer group. And at the end of the day, really from a finance point of view, because I was working with finance office people as well as with service and on the warranty side and certified pre-owned, really it's about, hey, you got to do what you got to do to make those deals happen. And that's what I always used to say to the dealers who were, felt like they were hard done by. I said, hey, there's dealers in your market that just outwork you. It's not that I want to give them the deal and not give you the deal, but they get it financed. And at the end of the day, the onus has to be, to Greg's point, as a partnership, but also you have to be willing to work with that dealer when they need help. And a lot of the dealers, felt sometimes that their nose was at a joint because they weren't necessarily getting the help they wanted. So I'm not beating up the field team, but at the end of the day, you really have to work with that team at different dealers, and each dealer is a little bit different. I mean, even though they think probably the market's the same. But what do you think, Peter?
Well, it's interesting when we talk about partnerships. In 1992, I was working for Ford UK, and we developed a business development team. And that was a true partnership between dealers and the OEM. As the OEM paid my salary, the dealership paid my performance. So I was paid a handsome salary to go create business for the dealership, and every piece of business that I brought to it, the dealership paid me a reward. So we wanted to create a relationship with the team, and that went by the wayside. And then we look at things that the manufacturers are doing, and because you're forced to re-image or you're forced to do this. One of the greatest fiascos in the recent time is Ford's EV mandate for the U.S. dealers. With the Blue Oval program and everything else that they brought in place, they forced dealerships to invest up to $1.2 million per store on a payout that would take them 35 years to pay it out. How many of these stores were forced in rural areas to do that, and now are out millions of dollars that they'll never get back? Because when you look at it, it's not just the 1.2, it's the interest and the opportunity cost and everything else. They failed their dealer group, and they have to come back and earn that trust again. So it's basically, if we look at OEMs, we have to look at, we're the customer of the OEMs. The customer is the customer of us as dealers, and so on and so on. And it's a trickle down theory, and that trust has to be maintained right up the ladder. And OEMs are truly failing at that, because they're I would say they're the biggest people looking at the shiny lure in the pond, chasing it over dealers, because dealers are fixated on, this is how we've always done it. So
Yeah, but
it's a challenge.
I would say that's somewhat true, not to beat you up on it, but I'd say it's somewhat true. I think that there are some dealers that say, hey, Is the juice worth the squeeze? You want me to do that? But more importantly, I think there's got to be some give and take there. I mean, and I've seen, I think it was a post with Ben Stock who said, you know, my initial thought was we need a new facility, and that was how we're going to grow the business. And then they, you know, Singer said, no, we're staying with what we got. Like, it's a little piece of dirt. It's expensive. That's what we're doing. So a lot of it, and I always go back to Pioneer's another example. I don't think he's done a renovation on that store in Mission probably since the 70s. So, you know, at the end of the day, part of it is, does this make sense as a dealership? But also, to your point, does it make sense to grow the brand? And that was something Troy was talking about as well. But what dealers should also do is spend some time maybe listening to the OEM in terms of the justification. But the OEM should also spend some time saying, hey, maybe this just isn't the right time to launch this initiative. I know there was a lot of run to the electric car, you know, temple of glory a couple of years ago. And now it's kind of like, well, is that really the right thing? But at the same time, I think there's an opportunity. We did an EV show, and I was talking a little bit about depreciation. I think there's a real opportunity on EVs on the used car side, and that should play right into the certified pre-owned. So there's definitely an opportunity there. The question is, what will that do? And the other one that I always like to use as an example is Volvo versus Polestar, where you have an OEM that says, yeah, it's a Volvo, and then it's a Polestar, even though it's kind of the same thing. So does that make sense? I don't know. But let's go with branding next. Obviously the OEM may not listen 100% to the dealer because they're the ivory tower wherever they might be, whether it's Detroit or whether it's Toronto or whether it's New York or LA. What do you think they can actually do to help the dealer? Like, what would be a benefit to all parties? What do you think?
I think it does start with explaining the why. There's two different agendas when we come with this relationship, right? The OEM is all about exactly what you say, brand growth and loyalty. The dealer is about the sale and the profit at the time. And so how do you find that happy medium? And I think it really comes down to understanding, no, the OEM doesn't know everything about everything, but I'll tell you, they've spent way more money on understanding analytics and predictive measures and creating loyalty tools than any dealer ever has in that manner. So can we trust that some of the tools, every tool that they have created is about that loyalty, bringing the dealer back, exactly that, CPO. Why are dealers not capitalizing on their CPO product and their program? This is insanity. I really think we do know the best for our stores retail wise, but they understand the best at delivering retention. And so you really have to look at and also, ask them, how do you take a program and turn it and capitalize on it? So many programs are underutilized. Grad rebate, I've talked about this before. Grad rebate, lease program. Nobody leases in Alberta. That's the most insane thing. So I think there's just so much trust that you have to get back to the OEM to understand that they do kind of know what they're talking about, and working with them will only feed you better in the future.
Yeah. So Greg, I have a question, and it's not kind of this question, it's sort of a variety of it. So what's the solution you wish the OEM would show up and say, hey, we really care about you. That's why we're doing this. Like, what would be something that would be a nice offer for them to make to you specifically, managing a bunch of dealerships? Like, what would be something that would be a nice to have, like, if they wanted to help you? What do you think?
For me, for our group, we really utilize data a lot. And I think if we had more real-time data from other stores, or, we've got 5 different brands, right? So a lot of what we get from manufacturers, from the OEM, is lag data. It's in the past, right? Yeah. So getting the lead indicators would be really nice, but real-time data would be really nice as well. I think that would be a huge win for our dealer group. But I think what's really interesting that I've seen on the OEM side is they have their own version of an OEM as well, right? When I worked at BMW, when I worked at the corporate office, I was also having to answer into Munich. And a lot of the roadblocks that were happening were because of that. And I think it's really comes down to a communication problem. People just get exhausted from potentially the red tape. But if we had the data all behind us to make these decisions, I think things would be a lot more streamlined, and the picture would be painted a lot more clearly.
Right.
So I think that's what's missing. A lot of times we're looking in the past instead of looking at what's happening right now and what's that doing going forward.
Interesting. I would have thought you would have said help on flooring, but that's just my opinion. Go ahead, Troy.
Help on flooring. I mean, it maybe in the Chrysler world at one point, but yeah, that would be nice too. Yeah, for sure.
Like, let's save you some money on all this stuff that we forced you to buy that maybe you didn't want. Shocking.
Yeah, I just we're such a data group. I think like if we had more, like if they could provide something really seamless to us in that regard, it'd be really nice.
Cool. Troy, speaking of data, if you don't have the Insight book, you can get that from CDK. Highly recommend. But go ahead, Troy.
Well, there's a couple things. The first question that you asked, Brandy, was what can the OEMs do to make this a little bit easier? And I just think back to the conversation. I know Larry always makes fun of the suicide hotline in Stellantis, but the moving to a 10-year warranty on a powertrain is not a vote of confidence on the powertrain. It's a lifeline to the fixed ops arms of all their dealerships that are struggling. So that is a huge, like, I don't think anyone really paid as much attention to it as they deserve to, because that was a massive move to support their dealer body from Stellantis in the time that they needed it. But, you know, when you look at just, you mentioned Volvo. Well, I was in a Volvo in Edmonton, and I was there the week after that Volvo announced they were going 100% EV. And this dealer's like, what do I do? Right? Or you get a dealership that just like, you think Go Auto just bought the Cowell stores about 5 years ago. Beautiful brand new Jaguar buildings, 3-story temples that are now they're all what are you going to sell in a Jag building? And right beside it, you've got the Land Rover buildings that are doing really, really well, but now they're all going EV. They got to retrofit their service bays. So I think some of the swings and pivots that are done because of what their analysts using, you know, what Brandy said about data, using their forward-thinking analytics and things of that nature on a macro level, are impacting dealers in a significant way, whether it's the Blue Oval program that Peter was talking about or any other one. You know, when I go into a Mazda dealership and their number one EV just got whacked from volume because of potential tariff challenges. So, you know, if you can't sell the car you just sold 40 of last month because they're not going to ship you anymore, that's a massive adjustment to your financial business plan. You know, put a whole bunch of effort into the beginning of the year. And then lastly, you know, in Canada, and I'm sure the US has some similar economic diversity in terms of what the markets go, but I was at a Jeep dealership, or, you know, CDJR dealership downtown Vancouver, and they're like, we don't have any Rams. We can't sell a Ram to someone in downtown Vancouver. There's nowhere to park it. But we sell a ton of Jeeps. And they had a couple Hornets on the lot, but they sell a bunch of used. But you go to Langley, all they want is Rams. They're like, if you send me another Hornet, I'm going to light it on fire and push it back out into the street. Like, do not do that. And so, you know, when you're looking at things like, we need you to take 14 of these, you know, Chevy Traxxas. Well, what am I going to do if I'm selling them in like Quesnel, Alberta, or Leyburn, Saskatchewan? I'm never going to sell Trax. You know, I need Super Duties and 3500s, right? And so I think from a inventory allocation standpoint, a little bit more mindfulness as to what the market's doing. Never mind just looking at historical sales, but just drive down the street. I think there's a little bit of a awareness that maybe could be taken into account on that too.
And that reminds me, when I was relaunching the certified used program with Nissan, we did a cross Canada tour of all these different regions. And I remember some vocal dealers in the Alberta market going, yeah, we don't want Micras. Like, we're not interested in certified Micras. We don't want new Micras. But if it's not 4-wheel drive, we're not interested. Like, what are you doing,
But
guys?
that's even better example as far as what, adjustments to, and imagine you're a Nissan. Now you're a Nissan dealer 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and you weren't filling in, but today it's like, okay, you're not going to get a Pathfinder or a Frontier or whatever else. You have to really learn how to resell a whole brand new product line on cars for an OEM that's struggling financially that may not be here in 5 years. And if you've invested your life savings or your family's generational dealer on a Nissan store, you're out shopping this thing out. You don't want to be in this business anymore. The uncertainty is just way too great.
Well, I got a comment from Mr. Larry Zanini on LinkedIn, and he said the manufacturers are focused on long-term and dealers are focused on today. And I think that's part of the challenge when you're dealing with corporations. Pick your corporation. They're looking at quarterly, annual goals, whereas a dealer's looking at a 30-day cycle. If they're very forward thinking, maybe a quarterly cycle. And I think part of that is the disconnect, but part of that is also the dealer saying, it's a 30-day, it's 30 days. So part of it is also the fault of the dealer in my book. You need to be focused on short, sure, but you also need to look at medium and long term. And also to Troy's point, when you're looking at allocation, I mean, you want to allocate vehicles to dealers who can actually sell a lot of them. That's not to say don't allocate them to other dealers, but if that dealer's crying for product, you may want to help them out with that product. And downtown Vancouver, big pickup trucks, probably not the thing. Peter, what do you think?
So I agree with you 100% there. The mindset between the dealer and the OEM is polar opposite, where dealers are always focused on the 30-day because that's where they're measured on by the manufacturer, because the manufacturer has to comply with production, with unions and everything else. So they have to maintain that momentum. But the manufacturer is also looking at a long-term play, but because the manufacturer looks at that long-term play, that can be disastrous in investment. So let's just look at, and we've talked about it briefly here, is the EV. BMW just announced that they're killing their EV plants. And that is a massive challenge moving forward, because look at the investment dealers had to put into them. Look at all the Northvolt canceling or killing their plant in Quebec. Let's look at all these things that were looked at long-term planning, because that was the focus. The focus changed and pivoted, and dealers turn around and go, see, and the distrust comes back to the OEM. We have to change the dynamic of that to be a more blended system. I know GM a couple of years ago floated the idea of doing quarterly sales targets. And it was quarterly finance, quarterly sales targets. And for some reason, they backed off of it, and I believe it was the dealers that pushed them away, because the dealers wanted that constant sense of urgency that we've trained the customer on to, hey, it's the end of the month, this is the best time to push, and therefore they can consistently have that momentum with the customer. Is it right? Is it wrong? Let's look at the Tesla model. There's no monthly sales incentive. They do exceptionally well in their sales process, albeit they have a challenge right now with political, but they did an exceptional job at selling their vehicles. They created a frictionless environment, and they eliminated times to purchase.
Well, it's interesting you bring up General Motors, because if you didn't see the news today, General Motors is joining forces with Hyundai to jointly develop 4 new models. So it's kind of interesting that the new boy on the block, the Hyundai Kia import, is now making deals with the General, as they used to call them, General Motors. But we got Larry who just joined. Larry, what do you think about the biggest challenges dealers are facing that have been caused by OEMs, in your opinion, as a former dealer?
Well, obviously you've got a lot of guys right now jumping out of windows because they've got electric vehicles that they're worried about trying to sell without all the incentives. Obviously I'm benefiting from the fact that they all need training because ladies got really sloppy and out of the habit of actually selling rather than pointing in a car and saying that's the price. And then the usual problems that never really got solved, tying together fixed operations and variable operations. I kind of think things over the next 6 months will level themselves out. I really do. I think the tariff stuff and all the things that are beleaguering people will settle down. But it's definitely going to be an interesting 6 months, and it's not a good time to be a dealer if you're not paying attention.
Fantastic. And there was actually a post by Ben Sock today. He says, if you think you know everything, you're going to get a lesson. And I agree with that 100%. So, Greg, we haven't talked to you in a bit there. What do you think are the biggest challenges caused by the OEM that they could maybe just stop doing? Like, what do you think it's something that they could just take off the thing, other than obviously quarterly bonus targets, I guess?
Yeah, so when I look at the challenges they bring forward, I want to be careful here. I'm not upsetting any of my OEM friends. I think so. My eyes really got opened when I moved into the role I'm in now because I'm looking at 5 different brands and how they do things. So I spent most of my career at BMW thinking that was the way, the best way to be. We definitely had our faults there. I think that manufacturer was really good at engaging the dealer partner and asking for feedback. What I see now as some of the challenges brought forward by OEMs is complexity with programs. I won't name the manufacturer, but one of the manufacturers will send the report card to us of how we're getting paid on back end money, let's call it, and you need to have a PhD to understand how to read this thing. It's so complicated. And then, you find out that you missed out on some money when you easily could have just fixed that had the rep brought that to your attention, but you didn't even really know how to read the playbook, so to speak. So that's one. I think there's a lot of allocation misses as well. And we touched on that a little earlier. Sometimes even launching a vehicle, I think the Hornet in the Chrysler world was a total fail in our market. I think we still have our launch cars that we're trying to get rid of here. A lot of the EV vehicles as well that have come out. And perhaps the last thing I'd say is the marketing. It would be nice if we could have a little bit more autonomy when it comes to marketing, how to spend that money. I know there's marketing committees and subcommittees, and I've sat on a number of those in the past. But we're really the people sitting in front of the customer and understand what resonates with them and what message will likely get across. And it's not a one size fits all. It's got to be a different message in all the different markets. So I know there's a lot of things, I think, and maybe I'll end off my little rant here and say I think the intentions are good, but again, it's the execution that might be a fail, and that's the toughest part in any business is the execution. So I definitely think the intentions are there. They do a lot of the right things, but some of the execution could be a little bit better, because I know no one's sitting in a room saying, let's make the hardest, most complex program for the dealers that we can think of and then match it with a really hard to read report card so that we don't, they don't understand what money they're getting. They're not doing that. But that's kind of what's happening. So maybe I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I have a story to say. I have
to be a trend over the years.
I have a story to share. I was talking to a dealer and they own a number of dealerships. One of them happened to be Nissan, and the dealer principal said to me, "Yeah, as long as I get the trip, I don't really care about anything else. Just make sure I get the trip." I thought that was hilarious. There was a trip to I don't know, California or something for people that met this criteria for the dealer.
In our General Motors team, we used to consider it to be ready, fire, aim. That they throw things out there that didn't make sense, and you would figure with all the high-powered salaries, somebody once in a while would raise their hand and say, What are you, out of your mind?
Well, it was funny that you say that, Larry, because I had Mr. Camastro. I was talking to him a couple months ago, and he said they had a meeting in New York City with General Motors brass. And I said, well, so what did they say was the solution to all these challenges? He goes, well, they're going to take a wait and see attitude to see what they were going to do. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So obviously it's a pressure cooker. There's a lot of change. It's roller coaster. There's tariffs. There's inventory challenges. There's obviously some Hornets available if you're looking for some. I hear Greg's got a few. If you're looking for a Hornet in the Greater Toronto area, I'm sure, or Greater Ontario. Nice car, by the way. There's definitely those available, but I think a lot of it is just feedback. Like if and I always use Aztec as an example. Like, here's a vehicle they built. Who knows why? Like, what are you going to do with that car? I don't know. Like, it's interesting, I guess. But what do you think is the best way to dealers, other than laughing a little bit, to get through this, in your opinion? Let's start with Troy.
I think the most recent headwinds, and Larry brought it up about tariffs. We got economy and that sort of thing. I think we're going to start to see a little bit more reason, and the recent backing off of all of the EV programs. I think Peter said it best. He's like, "See, we told you." Right now, the mistrust is there. However, it's a great opportunity for, I think, these OEMs and the dealer bodies to get back to, okay, maybe before we go and dump our entire strategy in the press, let's have a chat with some of our folks about it. And so I think on the go forward, we'll probably see more partnerships, just because of the amount of volatility that's happened in the last 5 years, whether it was EV strategy, tariff strategy, Nissan challenges, Stellantis challenges, COVID, just the amount of volatility. I think the OEMs and the dealer body realizing each other and working in a bubble, and both sides is working on.
Hey, Troy, it's like you're in a marriage and you get cheated on, or you cheat. It's never really the same. I remember when I first got into a dealership, that it was real simple. You had franchise protection. It was almost like you were invulnerable unless you were out of trust or did something terrible. And then we saw all kinds of crazy stuff. It wasn't that long ago that they said, okay, you've been a dealer for 30 years, you're great, you're done. That scared the hell out of people, because all the things that we thought we were predicated on, with all the money, the investment, it still came down to, am I protected? And then you started to see people start to ally with different companies and sell vehicles online. Obviously, Tesla shook things up a little bit. So I just think naturally dealers don't feel, there's always been a little bit of tension and animosity between OEMs and dealers, always. These are the cars we want, we can't build them. This is what we have, you can't get them. But I think when they saw franchises being taken away from people that had never done anything wrong, and again, seeing where maybe at the same time they were telling dealers to put up $20 million buildings, you were starting to hear rumblings like, well, you don't even need a building, we'll sell everything online. So I think that just naturally contributes to a little uneasy feeling.
And also, if you didn't see the news last week, Amazon's getting into the certified pre-owned, which I think is a great move, just because certified pre-owned, if you're not a manufacturer doing that, you need to be. But more importantly, I think it's a warning shot for those dealers to wake up on the certified, especially on the used side. And it was funny because when we were relaunching this program with Nissan, and it was the third time they launched it, the dealers were so tired of bad launches. They were like, yeah, like, what are we doing this time? So, yeah, I think a lot of it is just, fixing the challenges that were done in the past. To your point, Larry, I mean, my family lost the General Motors store after 70 years because they thought they needed less franchises, which I thought was crazy, but whatever. But at the end of the day, I think the franchise model is still there. It may evolve over time, but really it's about customers getting that experience and the OEM realizing that maybe the dealer is better at that than they think. But what do you think, Brandy?
Dealers always better than they think. I love dealers, don't get me wrong, I do. I've worked with and for them forever. I came up with something witty. I got 4 points. You gotta hire Larry, you gotta listen to Troy, you gotta follow Peter, and you gotta watch the show.
But Brandy, do not screw up that list. 'Cause if you shuffle those pieces around, boy, do you have a problem.
Well, I was waiting for your 2 bits on that one for sure. Honestly, on every level, it does take a community. It takes a community, and we have to stop being one for one. It really is one for all. It really has to be. And on that note, partnerships don't mandate. They don't mandate either way. If it's a true partnership, it is that wouldn't even be in the realm. But I really think that, we've talked about it a million times. It's culture, and it's culture on every level. It's culture about being open. It's about being ready to listen to a way of doing things better. It's about not doing it the way we've always done it. And yeah, I think the big thing is really community involvement from the whole store, service, parts, sales, etc. That, if it starts there, Greg, you'd probably even be the first to attest. If a store has good community within its dealership, it has a really good relationship with its OEMs. It has good relationships with all of its partners, its lending partners, its product partners. So I know we always try to simplify things, but I really think that it has so much to do with culture and the trickle effect that comes from it.
Yeah, I was talking to a company last week that does digital signage for dealers, which I thought was kind of interesting because you see that in franchise food stores and malls and stuff now. But I thought it was interesting because when I worked for Nissan, one of the big aha moments I'd share with dealers is the TVs in your parts department. You should be playing some videos that maybe sell stuff in the department that the television's in. And she was taking that to a higher level, saying, hey, we can do seasonal stuff. We can do a bunch of other things that were really like OEM friendly, but also really, to work with that dealer when someone's in a retail environment to share the right message. And I thought it was really interesting because I hadn't really thought about it that way. But, when you look at your average service waiting room, it's a TV with some bad news on it, whatever that news is, which isn't really helping the mood of the customer waiting to get their car fixed. So I thought that was really interesting. Peter.
Well, this really is, it's very difficult to talk on this topic. And as you said, it's controversial right off the bat. If we say something, we're bashing. We're not, and that's how it's taken upon. I've over the last 3 years, I've heard more people saying, "Why are you a hater?" It's not a hater; it's exposure. Why are we here to? We're here to make the industry better, not worse. We're giving it back to like borrowing something. You give it back better than you took it, and that's the challenge that we have because dealers are so. And I hate saying this, dealers are so ingrained in how they do things that it's a traditionalist model that is resistant to change. The OEMs are looking at new innovative ways, and they're trying to force feed that to dealers to get them to break out of the mold, and that's the challenge. And then you have vendors who are trying to get into the space and say, hey, you know what? We're offering a new solution that'll blend you guys together as a partner and be able to communicate better with your consumer, which your consumer is the person who funds every single thing that we do, whether we're a OEM, a dealer group, a vendor, or a consultant like myself. Everyone's funded by the consumer, and we have to recognize that's the issue. Now, the other thing with that is we go to 20 groups, the infamous 20 group. We got to go to the 20 group. We got to learn best practices. We have to learn this. The best 20 group you can get is bringing 20 of your clients into your dealership and take 10 that bought, 10 that didn't, and offer them a weekend out in the city or whatever you want to offer them, give them a choice of, hey, we're going to send you to the spa for the day. We're going to just send you to the best golf course. We're going to send you to this. Your choice. Here's 5 different options, or you can have $500 worth of service at our dealership. Come in, spend the day with us, tell us how you feel, and you will get more intelligence from that meeting than you will from any 20 group, anything out there. And that is significant, and we're just missing the boat on a lot of these processes.
Yep.
And that's it. And it's not saying we're haters or this or that. We're just trying to improve. Like it's 1% every day is 37x at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
We have to look at that number.
So thanks, Peter. So we got Larry saying we need transparency and we don't have it. That's what he says. He also says if we could dispose of used cars, we wouldn't need any dealers. I don't know if that's true, but interesting. So final thoughts. Let's start with Troy. We're almost out of time.
No, I mean, I will say that we talk to dealers every day in our company, and the OEM piece is changing under their feet. And a lot of dealers are doing their very best to react to it. It's when you see someone's last name on the side of a building that's been there for 50 years, chances are their relationship is solid, but you can't take away from the newer generation of folks that are, whether it's group consolidation or larger dealer groups that are running like corporations now, the need for partnership has just never been bigger. But I have faith. I mean, our customers are dealers and they buy from the OEMs. So we need this all to work. We're all going to still be in business for a bit.
Fantastic. Brandy, final thoughts.
Really just kind of adding on everything that everybody said is exactly that, to build with the end in mind. The client is everything, it fuels everything. And so if we built with what their experience looks like, if we built our process with that intention, I think it would make a big difference.
Greg,
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Greg, final thoughts.
Yeah, I think we got to control what we can control. And I think we have to keep giving feedback to the OEMs and keep looking at what we're doing, because there's always new faces. There's always changing people at the head offices as well. People progressing, people in new roles, changing seats. So we have to continue to give the feedback to these people so that we can keep moving the needle, moving things along.
Great. Larry, I know you just want them to keep the revolving door of staff at dealerships, but on the OEM side, what do you think?
I think you got to be persistent and you have to be nice, because the OEMs are like every other damn thing on earth. If you have somebody on the inside that likes you and respects you, it's amazing how things can kind of move in your direction. Correct, Greg?
Yes, being nice. I like that. Being nice, being kind. That's when I was a field rep for a while, and the nice dealers were nice. They were nice to deal with.
And you responded in kind by helping them. And guys, this screen, when the screen, it's like blah 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 blah. Yeah, right. Okay, another guy's
side button.
You. Peter, final thoughts.
So I agree with everything that's being said. I love how Larry so eloquently put it. Let's be nice. Let's communicate at a fair and reasonable level rather than demanding. You'll get a lot more with sugar than you will with salt, as it's all said. The communication and understanding that the OEMs are under just as much pressure as we are. And that doesn't matter if you're a dealer or a vendor. Everyone's under the same amount of pressure to capture market share and rooftops or leverage sales. We have to actually focus on the customer more and listen to them, and that includes everyone in our business, because again, that's who funds us. But the most important thing is communication.
Fantastic.
Don't hide anything. be transparent and create a frictionless relationship that you can speak and talk with each other. Otherwise, it's going to be like Greg said, side button.
Exactly.
We're just gonna keep pushing it off because we don't want to deal with anybody that is causing us friction. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll land the plane.
Fantastic. If you are available Wednesday night, we're doing lethal sales on the new hiring reality this Wednesday night at 7 p.m. East with me and Larry. So if you are interested in some hiring experts talking about that topic, we know it's kind of fun in automotive. Definitely tune in, and thanks for watching today. I really appreciate it. If there's anything I can do to help make the industry better, just reach out. Have yourself a great week.